Well, sorry about that. Came from San Diego, a lot of traffic, so I got here a few minutes late. A lot of interest in bears in Idyllwild these days. So what I thought I'd do is I'd start out by explaining a little bit about bears, their biology, their morphology, a little bit about the state policy and the laws governing bears, and then just talk about recent visitors and how you get along with bears. The most important thing to remember is bear problems usually only occur because people aren't paying attention. It's very rare that bears just come out of the forest and start causing trouble for folks. However, in California, we got a few hot spots for problem bears. San Gabriel Valley, kind of makes sense. You got a lot of people who don't have familiarity with the outdoors, but unfortunately, Forest Falls, California, and Lake Tahoe, both wildland areas, are some of the biggest problem bear sites, not just in California, but in the nation. And when you think about it, you have the entire Rocky Mountains and all the communities out there, and they don't have trouble. What's the difference? It's people's behavior. So let me begin. My name's Kevin Brennan. I'm the local wildlife biologist with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. I've been here 25 years. We spend every year dealing with bear problems one way or another. And I'll just get right into this. Okay, range of bears in California. Historically, bears were just limited to the High Sierra and up here in what's known as the Klamath province. But as grizzly bears became extirpated in the state, they expanded their range. They completely colonized the Coast Range down here all the way up to Monterey. There was an introduction of 33 bears in the 1930s into the San Gabriel and San Bernardino Mountains. 22 of those were male, and the majority of them ran every which way. The bears they released in Big Bear ended up in Chino Hills within 48 hours. Now down here but interestingly, we did some genetic research a few years ago. Most of the bears we have here in Southern California owe some of their lineage to those bears that were released, which is kind of surprising when you think it was only 33 bears that were released and 22 of them were males. And they just scattered all over the place. Only very few of them managed to stay behind. And now it's just speculation, but here in the Tehachapis we had bear, there was probably some mixing that occurred with bears that had moved south. But and then we now include Southern California, San Jacinto, Santa Rosa Mountains. This has nothing to do with the recent events. When I first started in 1992, we had a few incursions of bears south of Interstate 10. Interstate 10 runs through right here, and it's not a barrier to bear dispersal, but it's a damn good filter. If it wasn't for Interstate 10, we probably already would have self-sustaining bear populations here in Southern California. Okay, color. They're called black bears because if you lined every last one up in North America, 95% of them would be black like this. They also occur in cinnamon colors. Chocolate brown's a real common color we have around here. They can actually be, and one year we actually got a bear that was like a calico. It was every color a bear could be, and that was really rare. Saved the skin of that guy. Okay, body size. 5 to 6 feet, really 6 feet. When you think about black bears as a species, that's not too common. Most bears are full grown, 5 feet, 200 pounds. Now here in Southern California, they tend to get larger. Males can get up to 350 pounds. We've even had bears as big as 880 pounds that have been taken here in the San Bernardino Mountains. Yeah, 600 pounds, that's not that common. Like I said, the majority of the bears you're ever going to encounter are going to be in the 200 pound range. And they can live to be about 25 to 30 years. The effective age, though, is 10 years. Here again, looking at the species across North America, the majority of bears don't see their 11th birthday. But they are a long-lived species, and they can reproduce multiple times. Just some more pictures. Bears, natural defense when they're scared is to run up a tree. These are actually bears from an urban area. They're just kind of goofing around here, but they can be territorial. However, the territorial nature of them breaks down, particularly environments where they're getting supplemental feed. And supplemental feed usually is garbage, or else if you're in areas where there's rich salmon and trout streams, then they don't tend to be as aggressive to one another because the food is plentiful. Okay, reproduction occurs in the summer months, and usually bears begin to reproduce around 4.5 years of age. However, bears can start to breed at 3.5 years of age if they get supplemental feed, usually in the form of garbage or other human handouts. And they will implant more embryos. So you end up with more bears breeding at a younger age if they start getting into garbage and human handouts. They breed every other year. When you see a female going around and she's got these bears in tow that are about 100, 150 pounds, no, those are not cubs, those are yearlings. Females usually don't drive off the yearlings until they're about 18 months of age. So that's one reason why we get a lot of trouble with bears in the spring months. We get a lot of these dispersing yearlings, and they travel long distances. The average is 2.2 cubs per litter. Here in Southern California, it's usually 1 or 2. Occasionally we might have a sow that'll give birth to 3, but it's really uncommon to see more than 2. Birth during February. You can pick Groundhog's Day, kind of like racehorses all have their birthday on January 1st. Pretty much all bears are born on Groundhog's Day. Sometime, usually in early February, and they're born in the den. We have bears here in Southern California that don't den up unless they have to breed. There's something about the physiology and the evolution of bears that in order to give birth, they have to go through that denning process. Weaning usually occurs in July, and the cubs stay with the sow, like I said earlier, until they're about 18 months of age. Now here in Southern California, those yearlings can get pretty big. We get yearlings that are about 200 pounds, which is kind of unheard of in the bear world. If you go up north or other parts of the country, the yearlings are usually only about 100 pounds. Den could be just an area underneath like a small cave like this one that's underneath a granite slab. This photo is from Virginia, and those are actually yearlings with her, not cubs. Or there's a big cavity up in the top of this tree. That's where they den. And we've had that up in Northern California in the redwood forest. Had a bear den that was over 100 feet up. Wow. Poor biologists had to climb up there and tag them. We're used to it. There they are inside the den. This is part of a study, and you can see the radiant color that's affixed here. Reproduction contingent upon the abundance of high quality summer and fall foods. And there's plenty out there in the forest. Bears are omnivores. They eat a lot of vegetable matter, but they also eat meat, carrion mostly. They'll eat a lot of insects, berries, nuts, and they'll follow the foods through the seasons. The other thing they do, we see this out in the Southwest a lot, where our mountain ranges have a series of life zones on them. We go from desert to brushy areas to oak forest, up into pine forest and fir forest. The bears can move up and down those slopes depending on which area happens to have the most food at a given time. So it's kind of like cheating on migration. They can do it in a short area instead of having to wander up and down the continent. So it actually helps for their success. As a matter of fact, in Arizona, some of the largest bears in North America, the largest one ever taken was over 1,000 pounds. And he would move up and down the slopes just depending on where the food was the most plentiful. And the reason I mention this, no, bears are doing fine. They did fine for 300,000 years without people feeding them. Don't feed the bears. You'll hear me say that over and over again.
They're not.
Okay, omnivorous, mentioned that earlier, very seasonally with the availability. Right now, the bears, pretty soon when the manzanita berry crop comes out, they're going to be hitting that really hard. That'll be almost their diet exclusively for several weeks. And also coincides, usually here in August, all of a sudden all the bear problems subside and people wonder what happened. Well, it's the manzanita berry crop. That's easier for them to get than to fight people over trash cans, and they tend to stay away because all the food is right there for them and it's plentiful. Now, in years when the berry crop is not that great, they switch over to whatever happens to be available. Generally vegetarian. If you look at bear's teeth, they're flat on the back. They have molars like us. Their dentition is very similar to ours, but about half their diet is vegetable matter. Okay, yeah, and the last thing, the acorn crop, when that drops in the fall, bears feed almost exclusively on that. As a matter of fact, you cut their stomachs open, it's just a white mash of acorns. They'll eat that and nothing else. It's got protein, got a lot of starch in it, and a bear will put on about half its weight during the fall months getting ready for the winter. So in years with really good acorn crops, they're on them really hard. Trout, or in areas where you have salmon, figure prominently, and comes as a surprise to some people, but yeah, they love to gobble up newborn fawns in June and July. Termites, insect grubs, beetle grubs. Bears will rip apart logs, flip over rocks, looking for whatever insect larva food they can feed on. They'll eat beehives, including not just the honey in the comb, but the grubs and even the bees on it. And they'll even eat yellow jacket nests. Bears don't care. And then the manzanita berries, like I said, here in Southern California, that crop really figures prominently in the bear's diet. Other fruits, these are blueberries. We don't have them out here, but we have various different types of berry fruits that come available. And then, of course, the acorns in the fall. And bears really, they won't feed on the accumulated acorns on the ground. They want the fresh ones from that year. So you may notice that under some trees in the forest, it could be knee deep in acorns. They're not going to touch it. They want the year's fresh crop. Bears see in color and they have good vision. When you hear people say bears have poor vision, it's because they don't have vision like an eagle or a deer. But their vision is every bit as good as ours, maybe a little better. They do see in color, and they have good close-up vision. But their hearing close to twice human capacity, and smell, their sense of smell up to 2 miles away for strong smelling foods. There's some great examples in the literature. There's one from the Craigheads. Of course, this was with grizzly bears in Yellowstone. They smelled the dead elk 14 miles away. They actually did a 90-degree turn and headed straight to it. Yeah, so people say, well, what can I do to hide scent from bears? Well, you can't. If you have it, they can smell it. Okay, habitat requirement. Home ranges vary, but basically, from the studies that have been done here in Southern California, there were a number of them that were done in the San Bernardino Mountains in the late 1970s. Bear home ranges are typically in the 2 square mile range. Male is a little bigger, 3 to 4 square miles. And they use a variety of vegetation. Conifers, hardwood, brush, meadows. Meadows and conifers fit prominently in the evolution of bears. But like I said, they also do well in brushy habitats. They basically take advantage of whatever food is there. And here in Southern California, usually deep canyons with a lot of shade and a water source, they'll hole up there during the day and just stay there where it's cool. Because keep in mind, this is, you're 200 pounds, you got a fur coat on, you're in Southern California, you don't want to wander around in the day. So that's why we see a lot of activity with bears during nighttime hours, particularly in the summer months. But bears are mostly active dawn and dusk, or what's known as a crepuscular animal. But bears in particular seem to love that early evening time, like around sunset. Okay. And then presence of a lot of large logs. large deadened down material. They use that for denning, but it's also very important for food sources for them because, like I said, they feed a lot on insect grubs and termites. Okay, they're generally solitary, as mentioned that also at the beginning. That they are territorial, but that can break down. And adult males can be cannibalistic and eat cubs. I've seen this. You find bear droppings with little bear feeders. Yeah. So, and the reason I always point that one out to large groups is that people think it's cute when the bear's around, and no matter how much we say, people still feed them, and they attract the bears all around in a high density. Papa bear's going to eat them. So you're not helping out the bears. I will repeat that over and over again about supplemental feed for bears and how bad it is for the bears. I'll get to why it's so bad for people here in a minute too. Denning, generally in December. And like I said, bears are born usually in February. They can be born in January, but Groundhog's Day is a good guess for the birth date of any bear. And like I said, sows must den if they're going to give birth. Okay, meadow habitat. This is higher elevation, or if you're up in Canada, this might be 100 feet elevation. But Hudsonian life zone, you can see the tall spired trees. They don't accumulate much snow, lots of meadows. This is what you consider the classic bear habitat. In California, before the grizzly bear was extirpated, this was most of the habitat type that black bears dominated. Statewide population estimate, I won't go into great detail on this, and this is only out to 2011, but this trend has continued. Bear population continues to rise in California. California has a lot of black bears, more than many other states. As a matter of fact, California has more black bears than the state of Maine does. About the best way to put it for people, because a lot of people aren't aware of that. And of these bears we're counting, no, we're not talking about the freeway bears in San Gabriel, and, which are only a minor portion of the bear population in the state. Now, for our population monitoring of bears, from the hunter harvest data, they have to provide a tooth from the bear, and we cross-section the tooth. It has what's known as cementum annualites, just like rings on a tree, and from that we can get the age of the bears. We get the sex of the harvested bears, the number taken, the number per unit effort, and we use all of that for population modeling. The importance of the number taken and the number per unit effort is that trend will let us know if the bear population is going up or down, or if there's a change. We also recently embarked, we're collecting DNA samples from bears with remote hair traps. It's actually kind of a wire with some scent on it. Bears come over and investigate, and it catches their hairs in the wire. And then we have field technicians, they harvest the hair, and we send them off to the lab for analysis. And it's going to be the future for population monitoring of bears, because with that information, it's not like going out and counting bears. Not only does it tell you which bear it is, it can also predict the presence of other bears. Once we get enough of the DNA information, I'm oversimplifying this, but you get all these genetic matches, and then you go, okay, well, where are these other ones? Because they're not completely matching up. This one had a mom we don't know about. This one had a dad. So you can begin to predict how large the population is based on the bears you haven't seen. And it usually only takes a few years before you can figure out the total number, get a reasonable estimate, the total number of bears you have. When the state of Maryland embarked on this a few years ago, the most ambitious population estimate for the bears was like about 280 animals. 3 years into it, they had identified 1,053 bears. Wow. And they only had a proportion of the population. So Maryland's moving up on the list as far as number of bears. Okay, and this is really the reason why I wanted to give this presentation. We do have some bears that are in the mountains here. People have seen them. And it's really important to get the message out early, because prevention, that's the way to go if you want to not have a problem. Trying to cure a bear problem once it's started, almost impossible. And it requires pretty much 100% cooperation of the community. Good luck with that. A great example is Yosemite National Park. 3 million visitors a year. If you had 99% cooperation from everybody, you still have 30,000 people a year not storing garbage correctly, leaving food out, feeding the bears. Why do you think Yosemite has a bear problem? However, it's not as bad as it used to be. They're very aggressive with the enforcement up there. I've been really amazed. I used to work up in the Sierra Nevada. As a matter of fact, you go up and down the Sierra Nevada, they really don't have the bear problems they used to have. There's a lot of cooperation. But for some reason, and I bring this up a lot of times with reporters and in my talks, something about unsecured garbage is sacred to Southern California. And what's the problem? Well, I wouldn't expect anybody in this town to have a Bearproof Trash can. We just haven't had that many bears here. If you lived in Forest Falls, yeah. And they still the majority of the town does not have Bearproof trash cans. They're just now getting around to having the local garbage disposal company supplying. And it's going to cost the residents, it's like, I don't know, it was like a $30 or $40 fee for on a number of their bills. And then they would have them the rest of the time they're up there. Well, I don't know if the bears are sacred, the garbage is sacred, or the extra $100 is. A lot of people are resistant. So, yeah, every year, myself and another game warden, we both started about the same time 25 years ago. Every year we go to that town and give the same presentation, and it's the same issue year after year about unsecured garbage.
What about our dump? The dump is wide open.
Never make any food available to a bear anywhere. Once they find it, they're going to keep coming back, and also their pads, their foot pads are like ink pads. They're leaving a little scent trail everywhere they go. And the next bear that comes along and crosses that pad, he's going to come down there too. As a matter of fact, where they do bear baiting, that's a technique. They intentionally have bait stations that have sticky substance on the ground because they know once a bear finds it and goes out, it's going to leave a trail that the other bears will find and be attracted to. And yeah, people problem, not a bear problem. Been across the continent, Rocky Mountains, I've been up to Canada, Northern California, Oregon, Washington. Communities where people take this seriously do not have a bear problem. Bears will show up from time to time. But as far as bears breaking into your home and peeling the doors off your cars, that really only happens when you have a lot of people in the community who are leaving unsecured food sources out. Okay. Anything smelly or edible, the acronym BEARS. Bears eat anything really smelly. It's true. That's not mine, that's a Park Service one. Especially garbage. Garbage is high in fat and protein, and bears crave that because the majority of their diet is starch. So they'll be in there helping themselves, and they can smell it. Beehives, orchards, and gardens. Here in Southern California, besides bears getting into garbage and breaking into homes and getting pet food, orchards is the next leading source of problems. We do have people with apiaries, the beehives. However, there's a lot of inexpensive things you can do to prevent bears getting in there. Electric fencing usually doesn't take much. And there's a few other tricks. If any of you have beehives and suffer problems, give me a call. We can usually get you squared away, usually within 24 or 48 hours to prevent the problem. Okay, Bearproof Trash can. And I always forget to insert that slide. They only work if you close the lids. And you laugh, but you'll, well, it's another agency, so I'm not going to mention them by name. But they deal with natural resources, and they called me up once to complain. Well, the Bear trash cans aren't working. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know why. You know, they got them from the best manufacturer in the state at the time, and I went out, and the lids were like ski ramps pointing up, and they had like 3 times the capacity of garbage in there, and I'm like, really? Is it that hard to figure out? Yeah, so they have to be closed. It's just a latch. You got to get your fingers in there. Bears aren't dexterous enough to get inside. And also, the largest manufacturer of Bearproof trash cans actually has an assembly plant in Ontario, California.
Really?
And now you can't go in there, and you know it's not like going into Home Depot. You know, give me a 32-gallon. But they do supply to various outlets, and where there's a will, there's a way. If you want a Bearproof trash can, you can go online and get one. You don't have to wait for a government agency to make your life better. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to wait until the trash company gets 1,000 complaints a year. You can take care of the problem yourself anytime you want to. If you don't close the lid, it doesn't work.
Oh, no.
Now this was in Forest Falls a couple of years ago, and this is really illustrative. These guys think it's cute. Bears on the table, eating the food, no attempts to scare it away. And this had been going on for several weeks in the campground. And then the townspeople, the Forest Service, they contacted us and they said, oh, well, we're concerned somebody might get attacked. And I said, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Somebody might get attacked. And I said, but there's your problem right here. And their trash cans were all overflowed. And I said, the bear's not doing anything but being a bear. So you either need to do enforcement or close the campground down. Well, I thought they were going to do enforcement. They closed the campground down.
Oh.
But it had the desired result. The bear still showed up, but there were no longer food rewards. This was in August. Does anybody remember what I said happens in August? The bears come. Manzanita bear crop came out 2 weeks later, and that bear was never seen again. Problem solved. Bear wasn't killed. Nobody got hurt. And since then, they've been more aggressive about the treatment of the campground and proper storage of garbage. And that's a yearling bear there. And just because it's a yearling, don't underestimate. The majority of attacks on human beings have been by yearling bears. Usually it's young dispersing males. And also those little bear cubs, they look really cute. I can tell you firsthand experience. If you try to handle a bear cub, and not getting into the myths about mama, getting between a cub and a mama bear, but if you try and handle a bear cub, you better have platinum healthcare insurance, because you're going to need it. It's like trying to pick up a bunch of buzzsaws that are all doing at once. They can reach around behind their backs, and once they get about 10 kilos in size, you really cannot see, there's no safe way to handle them. And that's a 10 kilo bear, that's 22 pounds. That's not that big. It's about the size of that one you're holding. So I just want to stress that, because every year somewhere in the country we have some fool that tries to handle a bear cub. Yeah, how come nobody ever does that with rattlesnakes? You know? Okay, we do have some brochures online where we tell people what you can do to prevent a problem. That's what this one is. At the end of the set, if you have any questions and you want these brochures, they're all PDF downloadable files. What I'd like to point out here, though, is that just because you have a home doesn't mean a bear is going to come crashing into it. What we tend to see is an escalation in behavior. Usually a bear finds out a community exists, and then he finds out that there's food around it, and he takes advantage of, pardon the expression, low-hanging fruit, but in this case usually it's garbage or pet food that's left out. And the more he's rewarded, the bolder he becomes. And then people are trying to scare him away, and we get all sorts of suggestions from people of all the things they've ever used to scare a bear away. I can tell you every one of them has failed once a bear has become habituated. Once bears become habituated, I mean, we shoot them in the face with pepper spray. We turn around and come back. A few minutes later, we hit them with beanbag rounds and rubber slugs fired out of a 12-gauge shotgun. Might work for 20 minutes, what might work for 5. Once a bear knows that there's free food around, there's nothing you're going to be able to do to dissuade them. But once they do learn, this is the problems you begin to encounter. I'll just skip over that. What we usually recommend to people in bear country is have like some sort of outdoor shed that you can secure the door to store animal feed, pet food, and garbage. Of course, this one got a weak link here with a window. But like I said, bear's not going to come around busting into your buildings until he's been preconditioned. It's not a 100% rule, but what we see across the country is that bear problems usually don't get serious until they start getting handouts from people. Okay, this was up in the Lake Arrowhead area. Bear had been habituated in the neighborhood. The garbage storage was the plastic bags. And a lot of these people claim to be bear aware, but every week they're putting their garbage bags out. Now this home, the gentleman who owned it was a part-time resident, so there was no food in his house, but the bear decided to make its lodging underneath there. Dislodged the water heater, broke the gas lines, the electric lines, the plumbing lines, and this wasn't peeled away to show. This is what the bear did. He just basically went through the wall of the house. And this is when people experience problems like this and they did nothing to attract the bear, they can get what's known as a depredation permit and allows them to kill the offending animal. Now this poor gentleman, he did nothing wrong except have a home. But his neighbors were leaving garbage out unsecured. Of course, he got death threats. There was a petition out to have me fired for issuing the depredation permit. That's like about the 6th one I've had in my career. But this is the consequence. And then a lot of times it's just for selfish motives. People think it's cute to have the bear around their home. Well, this guy had thousands of dollars worth of damage. And actually, he had suffered damage the year before, but before getting a depredation permit, he said, no, it was only a little bit of damage. I'll just wait it out. Well, that was the straw that broke the back. Now, I don't know if you guys can recognize the hasp in the lock here. You can see the big furrow right through. Yeah, it's from a garage door. Okay, those little buildings I showed you earlier, yeah, that's a good way to secure them. Some of them actually had these type of locks. But this is what happens when you educate a bear that there's food in the neighborhood, that there's food in these buildings. The bear would just grab on the door and with tremendous strength, just pulled that metal, just gouging it right through the wood. They can peel a door off of a car, like if they're opening a can of sardines. They're tremendously powerful animals. Barbecue grills. That's another problem we have here in Southern California. A lot of fat on them. Bears smell them from a long way off. Every time you fire them up, you're dispersing that smell. Keep them clean if you don't want to have a bear as a regular visitor. And pet food, feed your pets indoors. A lot of you I know have elevated decks. That's another good place. But make sure you don't leave food outside overnight. It's not just the bears, you'll attract the raccoons as well. Bird feeders, suet feeders, hummingbird feeders. Bears love those. You have to hang them from wires or cables or between trees. But if you have them on your deck porch, which I know a lot of you do, I have a place up here too. That's where I used to keep mine. Not anymore. I took it down last time I was up here. Yeah, it can attract a bear. Here's a good example. Closed windows that are accessible from the ground floors and deck. Don't leave food in or near a windowsill. Classic cartoon cooling the pie on the, my second year on the job, Forest Falls, somebody lost their pies off the window. And, yeah, Forest Falls, every year we have a bear just walks in an open door, or walks in a window, someone's home up there. And now here's this one's not as big of a deal up here, but in a lot of the foothill communities, people have ornamental fruit, particularly avocado trees. If you're not going to eat the fruit on the tree, pick it before it gets ripe and dispose of it, mulch it in or something. But don't let fruit fall to the ground and be left unused. That'll attract the bears. Okay. What do you see in this photo that needs fixing if you don't want to have a bear visitor? Trash can, right here, most obvious. Anything else?
There's a grill.
Yeah, grill unsecured out there. If it was spotless, which I doubt.
Place the bears could
Yeah.
under.
And the bird feeder right here. Yeah, that one doesn't show up too well. Time for a new graphic. Yeah, so those are the. Now in San Bernardino County, there's a county ordinance, and they've rewritten this one a couple times. But basically, going back to where there's a will, there's a way. It's against the law to leave food outdoors unsecured from mammalian predators. We don't have any such ordinance here in Riverside County. But there are communities up and down the state where when you got scofflaws or people who just didn't care that have adopted similar ordinances, we even have a draft ordinance available on our website that some cities and counties have used and either used it verbatim or modified it. But if we start developing really bad problems, which is unfortunate because it's all preventable, you may want to go the ordinance or regulation route. Now in California, we have prohibition against feeding big game mammals. You can never intentionally feed a bear. And also harassment of wildlife. And those are any activities which disrupt an animal's normal behavioral patterns, which includes, but is not limited to, breeding, feeding, and sheltering. So yes, garbage is one of those. So it is a citable offense. However, it's pretty hard to cite people on these unless you actually see it going down. It's always better to have people's cooperation and just not develop the problem in the first place. Yeah, this building used to be underneath, there was a crawl space, and bears kept coming back and hibernating under it. Well, it's pretty easy to fix. Bunch of cinder blocks and concrete, problem solved. We don't get too much of that.
Oh my God.
What do you think she's doing with that bag of feed? And you know, year after year, you'd think people would learn. They don't. Yeah, cliche, but it's true. A fed bear is a dead bear. When I used to work for the state of Colorado, they had some bumper stickers like that, and I was visiting Durango a few years ago, and I saw them, and I said, "Hey, can I get one of those?" And they said, "No, we don't have them anymore." The people got upset because all the people who were getting bears killed were mad that everybody was driving around with the bumper stickers on, and they complained to the state and got them to quit printing them. But yeah, every year, well, in the state of California, typically we might have about 10 public safety incidents involving bears statewide, and very rarely do we have ones that result in human contact. But the ones that do, there's usually a strong component to some sort of human intervention was involved. But it's very rare for bears to attack people. No consolation to you or your family, if it's one of your family members that gets attacked, but it is a rare event, but it does happen. And the bears get very well trained. Cars coming, that bear's, he was getting ready to get fed by person coming up with the call. We had a bear or two bears at Mount Baldy a few years ago, and they were coming up to people, coming up to cars, and it got to the point that it was a public safety threat because the bears were just coming right up to the people, and it all started by intentional feeding. I was sent up there to trap the bear. Well, when I took the bag of grapes out, the bear heard the rustling and was there before I could even open the trap and put it in. So I just went like this over to the trap and dropped a few in, and then he went, and that was his demise. Similar situation, the bears had gotten so used to people's bad behavior. The minute cars pulled up, they would come running. You could actually see them up on this, coming down the slides on the hill, running to the parking lot because they knew people were there with food. Okay, what on there will bears eat and what won't they eat? Yeah, it's all of the above. And I mentioned the pepper spray before. I used to have a video. I made the mistake of loaning it to somebody. I got it from some bear researchers in Canada. But bears have been hit with pepper spray so often in this one study area. Guy has big sized bear spray, and he's spraying at the bear, and the bear's lapping it up. Actually got to the point he likes this stuff. And the reason I'm mentioning this is there's nothing that beats prevention, but anything that works to scare a bear away is only a temporary measure as long as food sources are available. And most important one, and that's why it's on top, is store garbage in bear-proof containers. What's a bear-proof container?
Bear can't open.
Yeah. Could be a shed, could be your garage, could be a basement. You don't have to go out and buy one of the Bearproof trash cans. However, they are convenient and easy. It's a one-time cost. And they last a long time, as they should, if they can keep bears out. Or store garbage in your garage until pickup. Here in Idyllwild, we have the advantage of the transfer station. So there's no reason for you to have several days worth of garbage collecting at your home. You can bring it there. And I do realize that the transfer station is not secure, but when you think that's where all the garbage in town is going and it's in one small area, yeah, there's some preventative measures we could take there to make that place bear-proof if we needed to. We're not at that point, but that could become an issue because in most of the small mountain communities across the continent, that's usually where the bear problems start, or at the garbage dumps. And I mentioned all that, yeah, the pet food, fallen fruit, the cosmetic fragrances and other attractants, that usually only becomes an issue once bears have been very well habituated to an area. They're not laying in wait to jump on you when you go down the trail because you have chapstick on next chair. I mean, you get a lot of hyperbole, particularly from some of the park agencies about that. But the point is, once you have bears that have been habituated and you have sense on you, you're going to draw them in. Yeah. I'm just so glad the reaction. I know I don't need to say anything about that. Okay, in a statewide bear policy, we have different categories. This changes. We go to we've gone to a color, like is it a code red, yellow, or green. But basically, it's a hierarchy of conditions. And let me just mention this at the beginning. For a bear to be a public safety threat, which is the last one, it doesn't have to go through a series of steps. It's not like it's graduating college. You know? The bear that's an imminent threat to safety, it's based on that animal's behavior at that particular point in time, regardless of what it did in the past. However, we do end up with situations that bears that do become public safety threats because of a lot of things they've done in the past and behaviors they continue to exhibit. But this is the most common one we get. Somebody sees a bear, freaks out, and when that happens, it's haze or scare back to the nearest available habitat. You've probably seen this on the news with deputies banging on the doors of their cars. They give a bear an escort up up the hill in the San Gabriel somewhere. I've done that over in Beaumont because we'll just try and scare it back. And usually, if we get the call like, "Hey, the bear's eating my garbage and won't leave," we get there, off it goes. We'll give education to the people there, with basically what I told you, and leave them with one of our bear brochures and say, "Look, if you don't want him coming back, because he already knows your house is here and you have food, this is what you need to do." Works for a lot of people, but we always have a few scofflaws. Number 2, bears habituated to humans, also called nuisance bears sometime. And when that happens, we recommend corrective measures, what you can do to avoid the problem. And goes back to garbage, trash. This particular bear was up in Quincy, California. And I used to live and work out of Quincy. Not too many bear problems, but this guy in particular figured out where all the motels and cabins were. And in 1 week caused $330,000 worth of damage.
Oh my goodness.
People took proper precautions afterwards. Here's another one. Bears up in Yosemite for a while would just go down the line of cars, just feeling them, because they knew eventually they'd find one with food in it. But up there, very strict regime. You're not allowed to keep food in your car. If you've got like a cooler or any visible foodstuffs in your car, you can come back and find a ticket on your window. So they've done a great job up there preventing the problem. A few years back, and also bears are really good at recognizing shapes. Up on around Seven Oaks on the Santa Ana River, a number of campgrounds up there, and bears got food rewards out of Honda Civics. Other cars too, but this one bear knew about Honda Civics, and if you parked your Honda Civic and it was locked up, that's what you got. Somebody got him eventually, but there were some really good stories with insurance companies about what was going on. And once a bear gets inside the house, yeah, they can put our local contractors to work here for some time. They're very powerful animals. If there's anything with an edge on it, they can get a hold of it. They can rip it open. Up at Big Bear Lake, I can't remember the Boy Scout camp, they had a commercial freezer, big door. The bear bent the corner of the door, stuck its spine, and then grabbed the food crates and dragged them forward. So now, like I said, bears aren't out there laying in wait. Oh, good, somebody just put in a commercial freezer. I'm going to go rip it open. That bear, of course, had been getting food rewards for a few years and got to that level, at which point it was destroyed. Yeah. There aren't any good outcomes for a habituated bear. Contrary, no. I've been with the department 25 years. I've yet to receive a call from any zoo anywhere in the country saying, "Hey, you got a bear for us?" Zoos breed their own animals and trade amongst themselves. Occasionally, there have been exhibitors and whatnot. So when you hear about a bear being shot, or like, why didn't you put it in the zoo? You tell us the zoo, and that's it's not just a cage for the bear. There's vet care and feeding for the rest of its life, and they live longer in captivity. There are a few organizations that do stuff like that. There's one down in Alpine, California called Lions, Tigers, Bears. The woman who runs the place, she's an exceptional individual. Every animal she gets in has an endowment to last it the rest of its life. Okay. Well, we outstripped her bear capacity in one season. And one time she temporarily held the bear for us, and then a bunch of her donors stepped forward and agreed to build a facility and provide an endowment, so we didn't have to euthanize the bear. Great. But for every one of those, there's probably about 50 or 60 that are going to the rendering plant. And keep in mind, we're not talking about bears that were born in captivity, or bears that were born in captivity or zoos. These are wild animals. They know what it means to roam around. It's like putting you in solitary confinement confinement for the rest of your life. And not all bears behave the same. Some adapt all right, others don't. And it's a sad situation. This sow, or this cub, sow got hit by a car. That's right next to her there. Fortunately, there are a few places that can deal with, quote, orphaned bear cubs. Let me just caution you by saying, anytime you think there's an orphaned animal, tell yourself you're wrong, and you're going to be right 99.9% of the time. Most of the orphaned animals we deal with are ones where people inappropriately intervene and actually orphan the animal by their actions. So it's very rare that we get orphaned animals. However, there is one facility in the state that can take orphaned bear cubs, but their capacity is for 5 animals. Once that happens, they're done. Now, yeah, it looks cute, but this is the facility that they can take the orphaned bear cubs. Anybody see a problem with this picture? Yeah. They are no longer high on our list as a place to take orphaned bear cubs because they're not going to solve anything if they're habituating these bears. They did that for a fundraiser, you know. Okay, yeah, it's cute. You got the bear in the office. But if you're a facility and your goal is to orphan these bear cubs, because what they do is they return them back into the wild in the winter months. You know, the igloo dog houses? That's what we use. And usually find an area where the snow's still deep, and they bury it up. They put the bears in there, leave some food for them, and just basically hack them out. They go out on their own, and it's marginally successful. However, a bear's best chance of making it in the wild is to be left alone. They have to be really young in order to try doing this for them. If they're older bears, like yearling bears are fine. And even once the bears are over 6 months of age, their best chance of making it in the wild is to be left alone. Okay. I get this question every time I've got somebody with problem bear. There's a couple problems associated with the large amount of media coverage bears get in LA County, and they don't always get the story right. My wife's a reporter. I have nothing against reporters, but what happens is they're under tremendous pressure to get the story out, and their timelines are really short, so they can't go around calling everybody, find every nuance about a story. Sometimes the camera crew's there, and nobody will talk to them, so they go with the information they have. And they say, oh, this bear is being relocated to wherever. We do not relocate bears. I'll go to that a little more. The other problem is when a bear gets into a city and it doesn't have safe egress back to its natural habitat, that's the only time we'll intervene. And yes, we'll put a dart in it if we need to. Or a lot of times, all we got to do is try scaring them back. It just depends on the level of the sophistication of the people responding, how much experience they have. It's usually best not to chemically immobilize an animal unless you absolutely have to. First question whenever you're dealing with wildlife handling is, can I get this job done without handling the animal? And if the answer is yes, that's the course you take. Now, when we get a bear and it's down by the 210 freeway and it's 9 in the morning and everybody's out driving on the streets, there's no safe way for us to scoot that bear up the hill. So yes, it gets a dart in it. When we drive 4 miles up, we get to that big yellow gate at the Forest Service boundary, and we go, out goes the bear. He's still in the same territory. That bear has not been relocated. He can be back in that community the next day. But we do not redistribute bears around the state because they get into people's trash cans. 2 incidents here. I'll start with this one. This was a bear that had wandered all the way out into 29 Palms. And it's just normal bear behavior. It was a yearling, and bears also use the desert. But we had people in our department who were political appointees. They weren't necessarily well versed in bear biology, and they kept pressuring us to do something about this bear. It started out near Pipes Canyon, ended up in Yucca, Morongo Valley, 29 Palms, and went way out there. And I said, look, he's just going to get out there, realize there's nothing, he's going to turn around and come back. Sure enough, that's what he did, but when he was about a day away from Pipes Canyon, we got orders from Sacramento to go stick a dart. So we did, up there. This sign was up for the infamous Meatball, the bear out of Glendale, Burbank area. The bear had crossed 210 and had gotten into the Verdugo Hills. Yeah, it's bear habitat out there, but we really didn't have a chance of making it because of all the people around there with trash cans. We knew it was a problem waiting to happen. We had some individuals that wanted to relocate the bear. Now, it didn't make the news, but that bear got relocated twice. And each time he crossed the 210 freeway. Now, we were fortunate that he didn't cross and somebody hit him. But that's the other reason why we don't relocate bears. You don't know where they're going to go. Anyhow, that bear ended up going in captivity to that place I mentioned. And that was only because it was a celebrity darling and people donated huge sums of money to give a cage to that bear. Meanwhile, up in our lab in Sacramento, we have a bear. Similar situation, but it gets euthanized. Bears are not relocated. Fish and Game Code 2118, and I won't go into all the details, but it's illegal to release any species of wild animal in the state of California. You can get a permit to do it, but when we issue permits, it's for the benefit of the animal. It's not for the convenience of your trash can. So basically, it's just plain illegal to relocate wild. California, Alaska, Massachusetts, all 3 states, it's illegal to relocate wildlife of any kind. Other states have different levels, but number one, it doesn't solve the problem. If you have a bear problem like they do in Lake Tahoe, Forest Falls, or whatever, because of unsecured garbage, and I take that bear out, whether I relocate it or if it gets killed or ends up in the zoo, we're going to be dealing with the same problem tomorrow. So it creates this unrealistic expectation that we're solving the problem. Also, bears don't remain at the release locations. In one Virginia study, this is where they were actually trying to reintroduce bears back into an area where they used to occur. Second growth forests had been all harvested back in the 1800s, but it was a viable forest again. They didn't have bears. So they were actively trying to reintroduce bears into suitable but unoccupied habitat. That's the best conditions any biologist could ever hope for if they were trying to release animals. They had over 80% mortality in the first 6 months, and the average distance bears moved was 186 miles. One of them actually moved over 500 miles.
Wow.
So, anytime you hear someone saying, well, why don't you relocate it? You open that door of that cage, you have no idea where that bear is going. Pick a direction, any direction on 360, and he could be 150 miles out. National Park Service stopped relocating bears in the 1970s just for that, because of that reason. The average distance their bears were moving was 150 miles. Anybody know how far it is across the longest access to the Sandy Center Ranger District? I meant to look on a map before I do it. I can tell you this, it's way less than 150 miles. Okay. Now, public safety incidents, perceived versus real public safety threats. And yeah, these are some numbers from 2000. I probably ought to update those, but we only had 17 incidents that were deemed actual public safety threats. And like I said, if you look back at the long-term trends, it's basically maybe 10 or a dozen a year that we get. That would be a brisk year, getting 17 public safety bears. And law enforcement makes the call, makes the decision. Fish and Game Warden, county sheriff, police, park rangers, peace officers, if they deem an animal as a public safety threat, yes, they can kill that animal. They can't obligate us to go do it. Like if a ranger calls up, well, we're sick of those bears in this. Get over here and kill this one. No, it doesn't work that way. For us to do it, has to be an imminent threat to public safety. And imminent means right now. It's like a 911 emergency. And people call us 2 weeks after the fact and say, yeah, my family and I were hiking down the trail back on the 1st and thus and so happened. Well, it's no longer an imminent threat, and good luck finding you there again. It's not that we don't care, but it's as serious as a heart attack. If you're telling us a bear is a public safety threat, that bear is going to be destroyed. Now, we investigate them, and a lot of them are perceived. Some people just seeing a bear, to them it's a public safety threat. The bear's in the campground, then it's a public safety threat. You know, the bear's in my house, it's a public safety threat. And I advise against that. Every year we get people who shoot bears when they're inside their house. If you've ever fired any firearm indoors, you know why that's a bad idea to do. The sound really will destroy your hearing. You can actually feel the sutures in your skull when someone does that. They vibrate. So just because the bear's in your house, get out of the way. But basically, when it comes to public safety, it's always your call, what you think is safe for you in any given situation. But just keep in mind they get investigated. So if you're frivolous, you're just killing a bear because you don't like it around, yeah, you could end up being cited for it. But we've never cited anyone for killing a bear for public safety reasons. And haven't really had any. We had one incident involving a mountain lion where somebody embellished their story, but we've never had that. That's the only one that I'm aware of. Okay, and the depredation, that's when bears are causing property damage. Property can be your home, your car, your pets, but they are not public safety incidents. They're mutually exclusive. The reasons for the depredations: property, agriculture, livestock, beehives. Beehives becoming less and less of a problem. They've gotten pretty sophisticated about preventing that problem. The problem we see most often is bears breaking into homes or cars. And the depredation permits we issued, there has to be evidence of damage. There has to be evidence that it was a bear that caused the damage, and you can't have been doing anything to attract the bear. If I get there, and your house, your kitchen's all torn up, the bear broke through your window or your door, and you want a depredation permit, yes, I'll write you the depredation permit, but it won't take effect until you've taken the appropriate preventative measures. So if I get there and you have unsecured garbage, you got fruit out, it's like, yeah, I got your depredation permit, I'll come back and sign it once all this stuff is all cleaned up. So these aren't candy, we don't hand them out lightly. It's really serious. Someone's gonna have to kill a bear. And we don't kill it for you because it's a private property issue. It has to do with your property. It's not an issue for the people of the state of California. Now, if you encounter a bear, number one, consider yourself fortunate. They are shy animals. Just give them plenty of room to pass or leave. They'll avoid you for the most part. The ones that don't, it's usually because there's been some form of habituation going on. And you can't outrun a bear. And you know the old joke about, yeah, but I can outrun you. I had a guy do that when I worked for the Forest Service. We spooked a bear, and he got all scared, and I said, don't run, don't run. Well, I passed him on the logging road. He didn't run as fast as me, but yeah, don't run. They're not. Also, you can trigger a predatory response too if you're fleeing from a predator. The best thing to do is hold your ground. Stand and face the animal. Look larger. You may have come across this before with the mountain lion stuff. Open your jacket, hands above the head. Anything to make yourself look bigger. All animals in that, all wild animals exhibit some sort of behavior like that. If you watch enough nature show, you'd see you pick a little tiny animal puffing up to scare away whatever was trying to get it. Pick up small children so they don't panic and run, and just keep them close to you. And like I said, very rare that bears attack people. In the 25 years I've been here, we've had 3 incidents. Both they were all in the San Bernardino Mountains.
What do you do when you walk your dogs?
Nothing. Just walk your dog.
Yes, and what am I supposed to do? Keep them close or keep them and
Well, depending on the dog, if you can pick it up, yeah. But bears are generally going to avoid you if you have a dog with you. Now, bear deterrence. None of these will work if you have habituated bears. These are all meant for wildland situations where the bears aren't getting garbage rewards or handouts. Pepper spray works really well. There is a risk, though. You can see the cloud coming out here. If you're not cognizant of the wind direction, you laugh. A lot of people have been seriously injured because they get a face full of that, and they were trying to scare a bear away. They're all panicking, and they all go. They usually stumble and fall and hurt themselves. Okay, and that's why I'm here. Informed public, most effective solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up for questions. Oh yeah, just last thing, if anybody wants to write down our website, you can find it just by going to California Department of Fish and Wildlife and just going through the menus. Most search engines will bring it up right away. And if you have an emergency, yeah, it's 911. This is right over here near Whitewater. Gentleman in the back.
In addition to making yourself think that does it making loud noises help?
Yeah, making noise works, but this is a truism for all urban wildlife. They've heard car horns, they've heard doors slamming, they've heard people. When you're dealing with habituated bears, you've already lost the opportunity for preventative measures. But yeah, if you're back in the backcountry and these aren't bears that are, yeah, you make noise when you're walking. I just came back from a 2-week backpacking trip in New Mexico. It was a Boy Scout ranch, and it's 240 square miles of wilderness. And they have a really aggressive bear management program about not having any attractants. And we were out there 2 weeks. And we come across a single bear the whole time out there. I know they can hear us all the whole time.
And people like big fighters that sell those little air horns, and they say it's for bear. Those things, if you're a hiker,
Exact same answer as I just gave. Yeah, if you're dealing with habituated bears, probably not. Like if you were in Azusa or Duarte, I tell you it's a waste of time. Now, if you're up on Mount Ingalls in Plumas County, yeah, it's going to work fine. Yes, ma'am.
Fence climbing skills. I suspect if they're hell bent on getting into your garbage, they're going to climb a fence regardless of what kind it is.
Yeah, bears climb trees, and you'll get it.
Right. So chain link, wood, it doesn't matter if they want in there.
And they'll go through them too.
Well, chain link.
Yeah, they'll uproot them. Usually what they do is they push down on top of them, but I've actually seen ones where the bears just pull up on the bottom wire and uproot them. And it's usually not a problem unless you did something to attract them in the first place. This one.
You know, the barbecuing season is here, and should we be afraid of, I mean, that's gotta have quite a nice smell. What do you?
But it always exists. Really, it's not so much changing your normal behaviors, it's just making sure that the food attractor isn't out there for them. Believe me, the bears, if the bear goes by Idyllwild, it's going to smell of barbecue, whether it's clean or dirty. But if it comes in and investigates and there's no fat on the barbecue for it to feed on, it's going to move along. But if he starts going through barbecue getting rewards, he's going to lose his fear, it's going to be harder to scare him away, and then he's going to start investigating other food sources. Yes, sir.
I work at the James Reserve down in Lake Fulmore, and we got a visit from this bear.
Oh, so right here.
He broke the screen and went for the sugar packets that were there. And I saw that he got into the garbage dump of the dumpsters of the Lake Fulmore. My question is, what if he keeps doing that? What's going to happen to that bear?
Nothing.
Okay.
Because if the garbage is attracting them at Lake Fulmer, okay, that could be fixed by this time next week. Get a bear dumpster. Is that a Forest Service facility?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'll let the Forest Service know.
Okay.
Now, as far as where you had, it was just
They
the
also have a lot of
screen.
garbage cans that are not
I know.
necessary.
It'll require some education, but this isn't the first ranger district I've ever dealt with bear problems, and once they know, they're usually pretty good about fixing it. Around Forest Falls, they had the Falls day use area, and they used to have the exact same sort of garbage situation. No, nothing was secured at all. Now the whole place is good. Now, but as far as your facility, talk to me after the break. I can give you some suggestions on how to properly secure your buildings.
Yeah, we don't have Bearproof Trash.
And you know what? And I wouldn't expect anybody to either, because it's a new thing, and this may all disappear by this time next year, or it could get worse. But the point is, it's better to be forearmed. Yeah, than forewarned. Yes, ma'am.
What about the garbage in your house, like in your, kitchen?
No, that's usually not a problem. The only way it becomes a problem is when the habituation starts.
Oh,
But like I said, you've got the dump. You can bring all the food over there, and not that I'm saying this is what needs to happen to the dump, but it's a small enough area. It contains pretty much all the garbage from town, and it would not be hard to run an electric fence around
yeah.
there to keep bears out.
My entire deck is covered in bird feeders. I mean, like 6 of them, like.
Call me when you get the problem, and I'll tell you what to do. I think you know the answer already. Yes, sir.
How much of an attractant is water, like bird bass or
Not really.
ponds or?
Yeah, the water's around. Yeah. And like I said, these species evolved without garden hoses and swimming pools. They can find water, and particularly roaming across the mountains as much as they do.
Composting.
Yeah, they can go after
Because I have a
composting.
barrel composter,
Mm-hmm.
they could probably rip that open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the things they've been known to get into. But, if it's not a problem,
Yeah,
yeah, but just keep aware, these are some of the things you may have to rethink how you do them.
yeah.
I don't know if it would work with bears, but in the desert, I've been successful by composting inside, basically hay. So you put a big, thick 2-foot layer on the bottom, and it's all inside hay. So I haven't had coyotes or anything. get
Yeah,
into
it just depends on what's in there and
They
the
can't smell it
particular bear.
through the
And,
hay or something, but bears can.
yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Under what circumstances do you radio collar bears, and is it done very frequently? It's just for research purposes?
It's done for research purposes, and there has to be a well thought out scientific questioning. We don't just do coloring, following. Somebody has to have a scientific question that they're addressing, a means of funding, and a means of collecting the data. A lot of times that's a cooperative effort with our department, but it would just depend on what the question was. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a supporter of lions, tigers, and bears, so I'm really pleased that you were mentioning that. Now, about Meatball, he was relocated to lions, tigers, and bears, wasn't he?
No, he's in captivity the rest of his life.
He's in captivity. Oh, I see, that's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, we don't take a problem bear and go stick that problem on somebody else in a different
I
location.
see. So now he's not
Yeah.
considered relocated, he's considered captive.
Yeah, it's a captive. Yeah, and that's a problem, because if you say relocation, most people think that some helicopter's coming in and taking them to wilderness habitat. That is not the case. The bear by the freeway is still in that nasty LA habitat that he was born in, and can come back again.
So you were saying nice things about Bobby, so do you think this is a good solution with Meatball, for instance, who had been
Well,
picked up 3 different times?
I don't know if it's a good solution, but the bear's alive. And there's no way that anybody could handle the capacity for all the bears in the state that run into that situation. I mean, you would basically need the government bear relocation agency that was fully funded. And every year, people would be catching and bringing in bears and building facilities for them. That's why prevention works so much better. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
We're reading that there are probably 2 bears.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence of any more than 2?
Well, one's a male, one's a female, do the math.
So
That's biology.
We're gonna have.
That's what I was gonna say.
Babies.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that, because that's what precipitated this, all this sudden interest in bears up here. There was a bear that was frequenting the Banning area,
Right.
and he was known as the Rite Aid bear, because they had photos of him by the Rite Aid, and it's right at the underpass to the freeway. And we suspect that was the first bear that anybody saw around here. And what had happened was, about a week before that bear showed up, it was seen up in the mountain center of Garner Valley area. We had a bear that was in Bermuda Dunes, and it was right there by the 10 freeway, by the car dealership, right next to our regional office there. It was on the weekend. So it's like, we got a bear in the Coachella Valley. And so our state policy, that bear does not have safe egress anywhere. So the nearest bear habitat was Santa Rosa Mountains. It was 3 air miles away, which is nothing for a bear. Male bear could have that in his territory. So wardens called me up and they said, where do we take it? And I said, I was en route. And I said, well, if he's out, just bring him up to Santa Rosa Mountain. And we did have sightings of bears at Santa Rosa Mountain. One was actually killed on Highway 74 just before you get to the turnoff to go up Santa Rosa Mountain Road. That was in 1994. We don't know where that one came from. Then as far as the pictures we've seen, the only pictures I've seen of bears all bear a strong resemblance to this Rite Aid bear. We don't know if it's the same bear or not, but what was strange, the bear was a persistent nuisance in the Banning area. And then it stopped, and then 3 weeks later, a bear, matching his description, is hanging around up here.
The white chest, right?
Yeah, and then I got 2 calls from the state park this week. They've got 2 bears up in the Long Valley area and out by the tram that have recently showed up. So I think those are your culprits. Now, with regards to the bear we released in Santa Rosa Mountain, I've yet to see anybody provide a description that's the same or a photograph that's consistent with it. And several years ago, I guess it'd be about 10 or 12 years ago, somebody had taken photos of the bear off of the Southridge Trail. I don't know, but that was a really big male, and he was black. And then in about 2002, we had a bear that was at Tramway Road in Palm Springs. And we released him right up behind the lower tram station, and he ran up the canyon, and no one ever saw or heard from him again.
So it's conceivable of
Yeah, and at various times, we've had bears show up here. Like I said, I've been up here 25 years. And it's an occasional occurrence. When I first started, I went back through some of the old records, and every now and then there was a bear that was seen in the San Jacinto Mountains. Original wildlife biologist up here was Bonner Blum. I used to talk with him a lot, and he told me about all the incidents he'd ever dealt with regarding bears. But it goes back to what I said earlier. The tan serves as a filter. It really prevents bears from dispersing to the south. But occasionally we do get ones we get cuts, just to make people.
Why
Yes.
don't they come north from the Cuyamacas? Because they have bears from Panhandle, or they have bears?
All of those bears pretty much are southbound migrants.
So they go north to south and
Yeah.
not south to north?
Well, no, one year we did have a sow with 2 cubs. It was over near the Vista Grand station. And she crossed back underneath the freeway over by the outlet center. There's a big square culvert there with her 2 cubs in tow. We never saw or heard of her again. But yeah, around 1999, we had a number of bears show up around the Idyllwild area. And 2 of them ended up down in San Diego County. One got hit by a car and another was shot. And then we also had a bear that was out near McGaw's out there by the mixing station, Mountain Center, and it tried to break into a trailer. I think that was like around Christmas '99, and that bear was killed for public safety reasons. Yes, ma'am.
About how many bears are hit by cars on an annual basis, and is that freeways or rural highways?
I don't have the number, but the leading cause of bear mortality in the state is being killed by other bears. Yeah, other bears.
Territorial stuff?
Territorial stuff, males eating cubs. Yeah, and yeah, we have about 35,000 bears in the state of California. We have no shortage of bears. In San Luis Obispo County on 101, there's a section there that bears get hit often. But for the most part, you don't get too many collisions on most of the major highways. A lot of the mountain highways, like Highway 49 going through the Sierra Nevada, Highway 395 way up north, Highway 70, a couple others I know. Yeah, and we get them here occasionally too. 60 freeway, I've had bears hit there, and then Highway 30 and Highway 18. But it's not that common. Yes, ma'am.
I have a greenhouse and I have big ripe tomatoes. You can see through the
Mhm.
plastic. Is that a problem?
Well, where's some wood to knock on? I've never heard of a bear breaking into a greenhouse. I've heard of them walking through open doors into them.
So keeping the doors shut properly.
I don't know. Yeah. Just remember, it's just glass versus separating your tomatoes from bears. So.
I got a cherry tomato plant on my deck too.
Yes, ma'am.
What they call whitewater that underneath?
I'm sorry?
Do some of the bears come under like whitewater where the freeway and the river?
That is a wildlife crossing. They found tracks of various animals there at various times. I'm not aware of any bears crossing over there. Yes, ma'am.
You said that you don't relocate bears, but you do move them within their own territory, right?
Yeah, and that's only if they don't have safe egress on their own.
So first you hope to try to.
Yeah, most of the bears, I'll chase them, I'll make noise. They'll get an escort out of town with a few wardens and deputies. And that's usually what we do. But if you get to the point, like the bear's up the tree and he's in the parking lot by the McDonald's and you're next to the freeway, you're out of options.
Yeah, so then you have to dart it.
Dart it, but he ends up on the same place he would have ended up if we just scooted him out of town.
Just the
Yeah.
way of getting there.
Yeah, so, and it's, the reason why I wanted to emphasize is we don't relocate, is if you have a problem with a bear, unless you change your ways, you're gonna have problems with that same bear. Even if we were to capture it, he's gonna be in the same territory, so it could be back the next day.
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
So I found a print about that big in the dirt outside my house. Is that a bear?
It could be the Idyllwild.
Okay, I'm gonna let you in on a secret of ours. Whenever anybody calls us and gives us the size of any animal, if we divide it by 2, we know we're within 2% of the actual size. So based on what you said, yes.
I made
half
sure.
that.
So that would be,
Yeah, the,
I live in Fern Valley.
yeah, I'm a size 12, and a lot of the male bears will have a track about the size of my blueprint.
The other place too.
Yeah, the ice, that's true.
Okay, well, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Please, if you encounter a bear problem, call me.